Welcome, my loves. This is going to be a very vulnerable one. This is going to be a very deep one. We're speaking about the purity and truth when it comes to our sexual interactions. So, in this video, we are going to go deep. We are going to uncover trauma, but this session is going to be so vital because these are energetics that are really playing out in the collective right now. And we need to bring healing to these energetics. So this session is going to go deep. And it's a vital topic because I see it all around. I see it in all of my clients. I see it in really all of my friends. So you're not alone in this. This is something the feminine collective is moving through because we're at a point where we recognize that deep longing for purity and truth in literally every dimension of our lives. And purity has nothing to do with any weird moral perception or religious perception of purity. Purity is experiencing the core frequency of your soul and experiencing this in every interaction, right? That's purity. That's what beauty is. And so the same goes for truth. Truth is not just not lying. Truth is a dimension. Truth is a way of perceiving life, right? So the Empress is the energetic that brings truth and purity to every aspect of her life. Now, that's a journey that will require the utmost honesty, brutal honesty in every single moment. And so that makes the Empress a warrioress, right? Because to bring purity and truth into every moment calls for fierce energetics at certain points, right? To really untangle that net of artificial lies, fakeness, pretending, to cut through these illusions, it sometimes takes a sharp sword. So in that, the Empress shows up as the warrioress. If you're watching this video, you're one of that. You're the Empress. You are the warrioress. If not, you wouldn't be called to this frequency. So I get that this is not always an easy task, but it's the most important job on this planet and in this universe. To bring beauty, to birth beauty, is to bring purity and truth. And when we're in truth, even the ugly becomes beautiful. And when we're working in the artificial realms, even what seemingly beauty is just straight up ugly. And when we're in truth, we're actually creating life. This is what aliveness is. When we're in truth, we're creating beauty and we're creating self-sufficiency. Right? This is what can sustain itself. Truth can sustain itself. Beauty can sustain itself. When we're working in the artificial realm, it's not self-sufficient. This is where life force is leaking. This artificial realm can only exist because something else is feeding it. The Empress does not play in this game any longer. The Empress only exists for purity and for truth. So with that, of course, and naturally, we have to bring this into the dimensions of sexual connection, right? It's a dimension that has been infiltrated, like so many dimensions of our lives. And it's the dimensions where our wounding is playing out very, very palpably and visibly. And so if you carry that essence, if you carry the essence of the Empress, it is very natural for you to constantly bring more truth and purity into your living experience. That is natural, and no, there's nothing wrong with you. That might be tough for people around you that are still unwilling to let go of any addiction that they have, any false attachment they have. So you might be one of the only people in your surrounding that has that lens and that is working with that amount of integrity. And for now, trust me, you will find more and more and more people who are in it for the same thing, who are in it for purity, who are in it for truth. So first of all, there is nothing wrong with you, right? Because especially if we're in relationships, there might be this old narrative playing out of like, oh, you're always nitpicking, you're always looking for something wrong. That's not what this is. That's not what this is. As the Empress, it is literally your job to infuse life with more truth and more purity in every single moment. So you might experience such a beautiful existence, right? In a beautiful relationship, beautiful friendships, beautiful career, and yet something in you is always looking for more. And that more is more purity, more truth. That makes you the master creatrix, because you are literally the portal that births celestial cosmic frequencies. The world needs you. The planet needs you. And depending on where people are at in your surrounding on a frequency level, this might be tough for them because your existence alone literally forces them to look at every single aspect of their being that is not in pure resonance of truth and with truth. So nothing is wrong with you. You are the most vital cogwheel of creation right now. That feminine fire, or not even feminine, it's not even feminine, it's just the original fire of truth and purity that you feel burning inside of you. And you are so rare, my love. That is so rare and so beautiful. So there is nothing wrong with you ever. I have so many of my beautiful clients that carry this fire, that original fire. But they're living in an artificially constructed society. They are still living in artificially ruled relationships, ruled by addictions, ruled by attachments. So there is this constant questioning of, do I want too much? Am I asking for too much? Is there something wrong with me? Is it what's going on with me? Looking for truth and purity in every moment doesn't mean that you cannot experience happiness. It doesn't mean that you cannot take the moment for what it is and experience true joy. But it's in your nature and it's your divine energetic job to bring more purity, more truth, because that's the way we are birthing aliveness, and we're birthing an actual civilization that is in tune with the highest frequencies of truth. So before we dive into this topic, which again, it's a very vulnerable topic, and it's a topic that is weaved with a lot of pain. So I want to set that foundation before we're diving into the aspect and the dimension of our sexuality. Whew. So for literally every woman that I'm speaking to, there is this longing for more. There is this longing for full body orgasmic experiences, this longing for innocent exploration and play, this longing for pure pleasure. And at the same time, there is almost this counter aspect that is questioning, well, am I asexual? What is wrong with me? I don't enjoy sex. I don't even have the ability to orgasm right now. I feel pressured. I feel numb. What's wrong with me? Am I broken? Am I just too sexually traumatized? So we have these two aspects within the feminine right now. That's at least what I'm seeing in literally all of my clients, or most of my clients, most of the women I work with. And so that means that, first of all, we have to bring healing to that aspect that believes that something is broken, something is wrong with her. And we have to really empower the oracle within that craves this merging of spirit, this beyond orgasmic experience, that merging of the cosmic heart between two, right? That is valid. You carry that longing within you for a reason. And the other aspect is also valid, because there's something in these current frequencies you're experiencing that isn't in truth. And some of the ways that sex is perceived in your reality right now is not in resonance with your highest truth. So naturally, you will feel like, whatever that is, I don't long for that any longer. Naturally, because society is still holding on to that, you will feel like you do not fit in, or something's wrong with you. Or what other people deem as so pleasurable, why isn't it pleasurable for you? You are a hybrid starseed. You are encoded with a very high DNA templating, right? So first of all, naturally, you will be drawn to that original templating of yours. Hence the desire for truth and purity. But that base resonance of a high avatar being, because you came onto this planet with a high avatar encodement, it's a very pure experience, and it's a very subtle experience. Now, the way most of society is indoctrinated into sex is a very low vibrational experience, a very dense experience. Naturally, as we're moving to higher states of existence, this will not hit the spot for you. This will not satisfy you. This will not feel pure to your being any longer, right? Now, there is a sense of been there, done that, I've experienced that, and there must be more. And there is more. There absolutely is. So in that, I want to speak on the frequencies of lust versus the frequencies of orgasmic bliss. A lot of the ways that sex is experienced is through the frequency of lust. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's a frequency. It's solely a frequency. There is no right or wrong when it comes to frequencies. There is literally just a, does that feel in resonance with me? Does that feel good for me? Is that what I still desire? Is that what actually feels expansive for me? And so for a lot of us, we've bypassed the frequency of lust. Like, we've moved past that. And I want to give you an example. If let's say lust is somewhere here in the frequency spectrum, and your base resonance is here, right? You're filled with pain, you're filled with addictions, you're filled with a lot of sadness, anger, unresolved things, attachments, artificial existence. That makes lust almost a higher vibration than your base resonance. That's why for a lot of us in certain moments, I've been there, lust felt like a sense of aliveness. It brought something into my life where other aspects were numb, right? Especially in moments where I was living out of resonance with my truth, lust was a nice way for me to experience something else. It was something that made me feel alive. It was something that brought in thrill, excitement, also ecstasy at times. Again, ecstasy and bliss are two very different experiences. So through lust, I did definitely experience ecstatic moments. But now, once we are healing, once we're purifying, as we walk this path truthfully, our base resonance will surpass the frequency of lust, way surpass the frequencies of lust. And now the experience, and oftentimes sexual experiences are driven by lust or connected to lust. This will feel almost like a hell realm like experience to us. Because what is lust? Lust is a possession. You can see it in the other person. They're being possessed by lust. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with that. Even let's say the demonic realm sometimes is a desirable state to experience, right? We're here to experience the duality. So for some, that might be what they want to dabble into, what they want to play into, like giving into something, like really surrendering to lust. At a certain point, that might be a vital experience. I needed to experience my shadow desires. I needed to go into all of the shadows of my sexual desires. And for that, I needed to surrender to lust at a certain point. And in that experience was enlivening, it was thrilling, it was ecstatic because I actually got to open the doors for my shadows, welcome them in, and experience all these kings and things I had so longed for. So in that, there's no wrong or right in lust. But a lot of us have surpassed this point. And when your base resonance is more in tune with your actual soul's frequency, lust will feel like a demonic possession. And it will look like a demonic possession to you. And you will not feel safe any longer in that vibration. Now, if you haven't experienced that, dive deep into your shadows, my love. Like dive deep into the experiences that you think you so long for, whether they are programmed experience, whatever that is. Again, there is no wrong or right. We're playing with duality. But now, once we've surpassed that, it can feel very painful to see that life is still at this level where a lot of people experience their sexuality from lust. That is no longer where you reside in. That is no longer what feels truthful to you. And so what you're longing for is purity, because orgasmic bliss is connected to the dimensions of truth and purity. Ecstasy is a different experience than true orgasmic bliss. So what a lot of us are longing for are these heart activating orgasms on literally all dimensions. Like we're speaking about not a life force release, but we're speaking about a life force charging experience. So honor that experience because it's valid, and honor that longing because it is valid. And for that, one of the first things that had to happen for me is I had to divorce sex and I had to marry pleasure. Because these, you might think sex is a pleasurable experience, but they don't often go together. So I had to divorce sex to a point where this let's have sex versus, well, let's create pleasure. These are two completely different experiences. So the most vital step was for me divorcing sex. I no longer have sex. Because what does that even mean? Because anytime we engage in an experience, because usually what it means is, well, at some point, a man's cock will be inside of your body. That had to die for me. That experience had to go for me. I had to divorce that. Because that creates a pre-programmed experience. When we say, let's have sex, it comes with all of the distortions that are connected to sex. It comes with all of the expectations. It comes with the sense of, I need to release something, or it has to go somewhere. So for a lot of times, this will add pressure to your body, and it will add force to your body. And in that, experiencing pleasure can almost be non-existent. So in that, let's divorce sex and let's marry pleasure. Because now when we say, well, let's create pleasure, whoa, there is no programmed version of that. There is literally just an open field to play in. That might look like someone's massaging your feet for 2 hours and licking your toes and kissing the inside of your arms and elbows and experiencing the back part of your knees and tickling it and kissing your neck or massaging your head or whatever that may be, right? So all of a sudden we've just opened a play. We opened a realm of curiosity with no goal, with no aim, with solely presence. Because when your focus is, let's create pleasure, you're in the moment. Because the pleasure you're creating, yes, with sex, you might have the same thing. Someone might massage you. Someone might please your flower. Someone might devour your flower. But it's the sense of, I'm getting you ready to go there. And that causes, especially for us that are very in tune with subtle energetics, it causes pressure for the body. Because you can sense that there is an agenda behind every touch, even if it's just subtle. If sex is connected with, at some point, my cock will be in your body, or this goes the other way around. This is not just men, this is also for women. At some point, we will have to engage in that way. There is a sense of pleasure that is taken away because every touch now comes with an agenda. So when we remove that, when we remove every idea we have around sex, and therefore we might have to stop using the word for a little while. Let's create pleasure. Because in that, there is no wrong or right. There is nowhere this has to go. The moment I touch you in a certain way, we've already created pleasure. So we're just in the present moment creating more and more pleasure. So for that, get clear. You might have to divorce sex, but you marry pleasure. And essentially, that's what your masculine counterpart desires as well. It's just the masculine has no other reference point for pleasure. So he wants to pleasure you. When he says, let's have sex, that doesn't solely come from addiction. This comes from, I want to make love to you. I want to experience pleasure with you. But for the feminine, especially for those of us who are very subtly in tune, that might take away, right? Especially when we feel the pressure. When we just create pleasure, there is openness. There is breath, right? Because there is nowhere this has to go. Because sex for us can be a very tense experience. especially if we trained ourselves to perform, to be a certain thing, to show up a certain way, right? Because even if your partner doesn't have these connotations to sex, maybe you have that. Maybe for your partner, it's a very innocent experience, but you have all of these background programs of what sex is and how it looks like and what you have to provide or perform or whatsoever. So with that, with the divorcing of sex and the marrying of pleasure, we create openness and actual relaxation for your nervous system, right? So in that, just want to make sure that I have this right, what I want to share. The nervous system is such a vital aspect for this. So if currently you do not embrace a sexual experience, it's mostly because your nervous system doesn't feel safe. So there's nothing wrong with you. And that can have many different reasons, right? Maybe you have a stressful day-to-day life. If there is stress in your day-to-day life and someone adds sex into the mix, that feels like another, or can feel like another chore. It can feel like another thing to do. But when someone connects with you in a sense of, well, let's explore pleasure, that just adds relaxation and play. And so the experience for a woman in which the nervous system is destabilized is an experience of pressure. And that's not an experience in which she can breathe and open herself up, right? To open up is a whole body experience. And in that, I want you to look at your body like it's a separate entity. And that might sound weird, but the pressure is connected to, I have to perform, I have to do this, I should be ready, I should experience this. But the I is not the body. Look at your body like a Tamagotchi, like your best friend, or like just a sweet, innocent vessel, the sweet, innocent being that is separate from you. Because you're probably a great caretaker. A lot of women have that. They're great caretakers, but they put themselves last. When you look at your body like a separate, innocent being with its own separate, so innocent consciousness, that goes for your beautiful flower and your body. Both of them have a consciousness on their own that is so innocent. But when there is a voice that says, I should be ready, I should be doing this, you're basically raping your body. So look at your body from this innocence, and in that you can literally just explore, well, does that feel good for my body? Because the me says, okay, I should be ready. But what does my body say? So in that, you also just get to experience the sensations of your body from a very innocent perspective. There is nothing wrong with your body. Nothing ever wrong with your body. And so the stabilization of your nervous system is the most vital part in that. The feminine can't play or experience pleasure if her nervous system is destabilized. Right? Why would she? Because her nervous system is telling her, hey, there's danger, there's stress, we're working in survival mode right now. This is not the time for pleasure. So now we have to find ways to, first and foremost, relax, bring in pleasure, because pleasure is relaxing. But sex is not the same as pleasure, right? So let's bring in relaxation. Yeah, when you're stressed, it's not that you can't receive pleasure, but when you're in a state of survival and stress and someone touches you, it literally feels like, no, don't come close to me. That's not because something's wrong with you. That's not because you can't experience pleasure or you're numb to pleasure. No, quit that and cut that. Delete that BS. If your body is in stress, if your body is in a mode of I have to survive, it's not receptive for pleasure, because that's not the focus. The focus is, let's make sure we survive right here. Now, is that real? Probably not, right? Most of us do not actually fight for their survival. And as you bring in more joy, relaxing experiences, you can make time for relaxing experiences. Your body will open up for pleasure. And I also want to look at this from an evolutionary perspective. Sexual arousal in women and sexual arousal in men just simply works differently. We have a fluctuation of hormones. So at different points of the month, there are different states of arousal accessible for us. For a man, his hormones are very steady. Men have more of a steady experience. And now let's look at the evolutionary roles that we have and what pleasure and sex is. As a woman, we are the gatekeepers for the DNA to procreate. We are the ones deciding which DNA gets to live on this planet and which DNA is no longer fit to procreate and exist on this planet. That's literally our job. In that's a big responsibility. Now, not only do we carry the responsibility of I have to make the right choice for DNA to procreate. So in that, just from a biological experience, you might not experience sexual arousal because something in you is like, I don't know if this person is fit to procreate, right? This might happen. Then the other aspect is you are the one that has to carry the baby for at least 9 months. So you have to look 9 months into the future of, well, is this a safe environment for me to grow a baby in my body? So at least you have to feel safe that the next 9 months are a safe experience for you. But beyond that, for the next 5 years at least, in which you will have to nourish the baby with your body, in which you will have to give milk. So you have the feminine has a very different experience when it comes to sexual arousal, because it's so deeply connected to her safety and also the safety of humanity. Because she's the one that makes sure that, hey, the DNA that I allow to survive on this planet is a safe DNA. It's safe. It's actually contributing to aliveness and life and beauty rather than taking away. So in that, I want us to understand there's a big responsibility that comes with having sex. While if we look at the biological and evolutionary standpoint of a man, he is literally used to hunt, survival, and that state of being. And he will still be able to experience sexual arousal in that. Because think about tribal days. I'm going on a hunt. I might not come back. Let's make a baby so my DNA stays alive, right? Let's think about that. I want to procreate as much as possible so I can make sure my DNA stays on this planet. That means even if he's about to chase a freaking, I don't know, buffalo or whatsoever, a part of him will be ready to have sex and make love. Or not make love, but have sex. So let's just really look at this also from this evolutionary standpoint of arousal. A man will feel aroused a lot more times than the feminine. It's way easier for the masculine to feel arousal because it comes with the sense of my DNA has to stay alive. My DNA has to procreate. I have to make sure my DNA stays on this planet. And you might say, okay, that's thousands and thousands of years back. It's not that long ago, actually. And if we look at the existence of humanity, the evolutionary period, right? That period we're speaking about is kind of like 99% of our biology. Everything else is quite new for the human biology. So we do still work in these ways, and our biology still works with evolutionary basics. So I want us to just look at this principle for a second. And in that, your body is the oracle. So your body is the guide for purity. Your body will always tell you exactly what feels good for it and what doesn't. And it's not that complicated. It's not that complicated. Trust your oracle again. So for that, we have to delete this voice that thinks that something's wrong with me. There is nothing wrong with you. Your body is the guide. Your body is the guide to purity and truth. And your body will guide you through your trauma. And what I wrote down is, your sexual trauma did not make you numb to pleasure, but it makes you alert to all that is not true pleasure and bliss. So a lot of women experience the sense of, well, I don't experience pleasure because I'm sexually traumatized. And this isn't true, and this couldn't be further from the truth. Your body is the answer to orgasmic bliss. Your body will guide you towards purity and true pleasure. But for that, you have to honor your body. So in a moment where your body says, that isn't pleasurable, you don't have to endure. You don't have to push through. Right? You can say, oh, wow, okay, wait. Let's pause for a moment. Let's breathe. Let's go somewhere else. Right? You can always redirect. You can always hit pause and go somewhere else. If the touch of your partner doesn't feel pleasurable, you can just breathe with him. You can just connect with him. You don't have to just endure the touch, right? So when you listen to your body instead of overriding your body's intelligence, your body will naturally lead you to pleasure, because your body will always lead you to truth. And guess what? Orgasmic bliss and pleasure is the frequency of truth. So just listen. If your body feels numb, spend more time with that area. Or explore areas that do not feel numb. Try something different. So absolutely nothing is wrong with you. And your body isn't sexually traumatized, and that's the reason why you can't experience pleasure. If there is sexual trauma, which is literally in actually all of women and all of men as well, your body will guide you out of this trauma. Because remember, your body has an innate intelligence that can't be overwritten by anything else. When animals experience trauma, what do? They shake it off, right? They just shake it off. Your body experienced trauma. That doesn't mean that it's holding on to it for the rest of its existence. Your body is guiding you out of the trauma. There are ways to release the trauma out of your body. And your body is the guide for that. So whatever that voice is saying, I should be ready, I should be that, I should experience this, let the voice speak. The voice can speak however much it wants. Listen to your body. Because for your body, this voice is irrelevant. Because your body is not the me. The body is its own beautiful, innocent consciousness that we get to observe. So we're just observing. So in that, separate yourself from your body. And not in a disconnected way, but You know what I mean? Like disconnect the consciousness of your body from your thoughts. And so where does trauma come from? Why is it that so many of us have experienced sexual trauma, immense sexual trauma? And so the first aspect is that our culture, our civilization, our society does not embrace the art of pleasure and does not take the art of love seriously. We have a culture in which the art of pleasure is not a dimension that is taught when it's actually the base foundation for life itself. Now, if we look into ancient cultures where there has been more of a healthy sexual experience, like in Taoist traditions, in ancient Chinese traditions, there are so many books. Maybe they were hidden or maybe they were reserved for masters, but at least they were written. So the ancient Taoist masters knew about the vital importance of the art of pleasure. There are many scriptures and books that teach how to approach the pleasure of a woman's body. The Kama Sutra, even though the Kama Sutra is a book filled with distortions, like you really don't need to read that, it's filled with distortions, but if you're curious, do it. Even that, at least there was a focus on the art of pleasure and the art of love making. It wasn't shamed or it wasn't looked at as something guilty or something that is only happening in the shadows. No, it was taught. It was an art. The art of pleasure is probably the most vital art for humans to master and play with. So a lot of our trauma comes from our whole civilization or culture, Western culture, and even, I mean, at this point, really like all of humanity. We do not teach the art of pleasure, and we do not take that serious. And so in that, we are not being initiated properly. So now the most vital aspect of our life is just kind of like, don't talk about it. Or, yeah, they're going to learn themselves. Really? That didn't really work out properly. So let's look at the proper initiation of a woman. Let's look at that first. How would it look like? How would we have been initiated if we grew up in a healed, healthy, pure, truthful environment? First of all, the feminine would learn to honor her body as the oracle, and that her body is always right. Her body always guides her in the right direction. And if anything does not feel pleasurable for the body or doesn't feel absolutely wholesome for the body, she's not meant to experience that. So that's the first one, really initiating the feminine into confidence and trust in her body. Her body is her confidant. So in that we have confidence. The next aspect is the aspect of initiation into the inner sexual alchemy. The most vital aspect for even just existing is to know, what do I do with my sexual energy? Because it's life force energy. So we would have been taught to alchemize that energy and bring that sexual, so potent energy up to create a spirit vessel, to create spirit energy, to cultivate energy. That is the second aspect that is vital for our initiation. The third aspect, of course, is to grow up around healthy father figures. Men that show you what it means to be honored. Whether that is your father figures, brothers, cousins, male friends, just male energy. Living in an environment where male energy is just absolute safety. It's the symbol of safety. Male energy is the symbol of safety. So in that, if we would have grown up like that, our experience of our body, of our sexuality would be completely different. This is something we will create for our children. So we're moving towards that. We're moving towards that really healed, healthy environment and society. What about the man? What's the initiation of a man into his healthy sexual expression? Well, first of all, if we look at tribes, the way a lot of tribes would initiate young men is starting with nature. A man would start to form a deep, intimate relationship with nature. In that, he learns the difference between power and force. He learns the flow and what it means to flow with nature. He learns to honor nature. Nature is his feminine exploration. Nature is the symbol of femininity. So he learns how to dance with nature, play with nature, honor nature. That's the first aspect of a man's true initiation. A man that honors nature will never dishonor the body of the feminine. He couldn't. He will never put force upon the feminine. He couldn't, because he knows and he learned what it means to flow with nature. Whew. Whew. Phew. Like this, speaking about this really brings all of us back to the innocence of sexual expression. And it's such a contrasting energy to what we've been initiated onto this planet that it can bring up a lot in us. So the second most vital step of a young boy's initiation is again the cultivation of his sexual energy and what to even do with that. His sexual energy is the most potent life force energy that is meant to fuel his spirit vessel, that is meant to fuel his existence, that is meant to be built up. Because the more spirit essence a man and a woman carries, the more impact they have on this energetic realm and therefore on the physical realm. So a man that carries and knows how to channel his energy, his sexual arousal, and channel and cultivate the spirit energy is a magi, a true magi. He has immense manipulation power when it comes to the outside reality, right? And if you're initiated in purity, this will always be for the betterment of society. A man that knows how to cultivate that potent energy, and especially young boys have to learn how to cultivate that. Therefore, they will be the magi's. They will be the ones creating at will, truly at will. And their will is always divine will. When you take that away, you now have men that live from their life force rather than being fueled by spirit energy. So the inner sexual alchemy is the most vital aspect of initiation for us. And so the third one, which is, I so love that, and you find that in quite a lot of tribes, that a man, when he reaches like a teenage age, he's initiated by a more mature woman, a woman that really knows her body, a woman that really honors the sacredness of her flower and her whole existence. There is no shame in that. There is no weirdness in that. It's natural that a young man or a young boy finds curiosity in mature women, because he essentially knows there's something he can learn. So in that, one of his first sexual encounters are initiated by a mature woman that will teach him how to properly honor the body of the feminine. In that, there is immediate reverence, because a young boy will step into reverence when he interacts with a more mature female sexual energy. So there is no perversion in that. There's no weirdness in that. There's no shame in that. That's just the way that society makes sure that the man that will then marry a woman is a safe man. So a mature woman will step in and teach him the art of love and teach him the art of pleasure. Now, that is actually, to me, a very wholesome way of having a man learn how to engage with the female body. Because now what's happening in our society is the absolute opposite. What happens in our surrounding? The first sexual interaction is a young, unexperienced guy that essentially learned from porn, and a super insecure girl that essentially learned from porn. Now they come together. He is performing, she is performing, nothing's pleasurable. But if she doesn't speak up, he doesn't know how to properly touch a female's body, and he will just continuously proceed. And men in sometimes their freaking 50s and 60s still carry that unexperienced way of a boy, because there was no woman to actually initiate him properly into the art of love, into the art of pleasure. So now that's why actually this mature woman stepping in and sharing the art of lovemaking and pleasure with a young man could actually be a very vital aspect. It doesn't have to happen. If you are a girl in your truth and you follow the oracle of your body, you can explore and innocently explore. But for a lot of us, this innocent play was taken away. And we as women, or we as girls, one of the first thing that was implemented was the thought of, oh wow, this is supposed to be pleasurable, but I'm not experiencing pleasure. Something must be wrong with me. So there's this, that's where this happens, the essence of shame, guilt, and all of that. So now what is the wounding of man? And I want to start off with man, because I want us to really cultivate deep compassion for what happened, not only to us, but to men as well. And the biggest trauma for man is that porn was their way of being initiated, which is really, really traumatizing. It's deeply traumatizing. Because what happens? Porn is a weapon of consciousness, and it's a tool to siphon life force energy. This is not dramatic. We have to look at porn for what it is. It is not innocent. It is literally created as a weaponry for society. It is a war on consciousness, and porn is the weapon. And it literally is the door of Satan, because what it teaches is addiction and how to squander life force. So our divinity, our cosmic celestial realms will never ask us to squander our life force. This is the realm in which we cultivate life force. This is the realm of eternal youth. Because if you do not tap into your life force resources, but yet you learn how to live from the eternally abundant spirit energy, aging doesn't have to occur. Aging in that sense is an illusion. But we were indoctrinated into the opposite, and this is why I call that Satan. You call it whatever it is, like whatever that may be. But there is a force that is inviting you to squander your life force and therefore slowly kill you. That's not dramatic. That's just what happens. Aging happens when we tap into our life force resources rather than spirit energy. And all that porn teaches you is to squander the most sacred you have, which is to squander and give your life force away. And when you give your life force while you're watching the generated pictures or the feminine being dishonored or what's most sacred to be ridiculed, your life force is feeding an existence that is essentially vampiric and satanistic and does no longer deserve to exist on this planet. That is a weapon on consciousness. This is what young men are initiated into. This is teaching young men instant gratification and pleasure connected to instant gratification. And what is that? Instant gratification isn't pleasure. Everyone who's addicted to an actual, like, real drug will tell you that. Ask a meth addict if that is his way of pleasure. The first time it was out of this world, an experience, and now there is an addiction and it's misery and suffering. And that's the same thing that porn is. I'm not speaking about a moral standpoint. I was initiated by porn. I was severely addicted to porn and everything that comes with that. This is looking at it from an energetic standpoint and from a truthful perspective of what's actually happening here. So now, when a man squanders his seed, his semen, which is actually meant to be cultivated into spirit energy, you have a society and an army of pathetic weakness instead of an army of warrior builders. Because a man that does not squander his seed is a warrior and an architect and a builder. He can create at will. He is a magi because he learned how to cultivate his energy and how to live from abundant, eternal, abundant spirit energy. He is fueled by cosmic energy. He does not squander his life force. But now porn is teaching how to release seed, which is squandering life force, which makes people depressed, addicted, ambitionless, unreceptive for lies. You can't see clearly anymore, right? So this is what's been cultivated. So we have an army of weak, pathetic men that are addicted to porn rather than an army of warriors, builders, protectors. This is a weapon. So I want us to really cultivate a deep compassion for man and what happened here. And again, this is literally a slow death. Like, I think in French there is even, I don't know if that's, but the orgasm isn't it described as la petite mort? Why would you call it the little death? We only call it the little death. That makes no sense if you look at it from an orgasmic bliss perspective, because orgasms are actually more life rather than la petite mort, little death. The little death only occurs because you are actually now squandering life force because no one ever taught you how to properly channel that. And you giving a piece of your life away to a demonic realm, to a satanic realm. That's why I freaking love animes, because a lot of times if you watch animes, they will make this really clear, where you literally have like the heroes or the demon hunters, and they have to trade in their life force for demonic power. Like, a lot of the anime is very disclosure type. That's literally what happens if you do not know how to channel your energy properly. It's a little death because you're giving a part of your life force away, which means you are decreasing life. That doesn't happen in a pure, truthful, sexual expression. So what's also happening is with porn, you're basically implementing the shutdown of the heart chakra field. And that's a multidimensional technology. And it's the same thing that happens in war. War, like soldiers, not warriors, but soldiers are being trained to turn off their heart chakra. We spoke about that in a previous video. That's the only way that you can commit these atrocities. The only way. So the same thing happens through porn. You can only watch the feminine be degraded to that degree so many times until your heart chakra just turns off. And that's what happens to men. So now in a lot of men, you can feel that when you engage sexually with them, there is a moment when all of a sudden a switch hits and their heart chakra is not involved anymore. I'm sure a lot of you have had that experience. I definitely had that experience. There is a moment when it switches and you cannot feel the heart chakra. You cannot feel the heart chakra field. It's turned off. And in that moment, his penis literally becomes a weapon. Because the head of the cock is literally connected to the heart. It even looks like a heart. So essentially, in a pure way, his penis is connected to his heart chakra. So it's an extension of his heart chakra. So now if he enters you with a pure intent, his heart chakra is touching your womb, which is an extension of your heart chakra. So you see how a heart orgasm is actually possible through that interaction. Now, if he's indoctrinated by porn, his heart is literally turning off throughout this interaction. So now his cock, which is supposed to be an extension of his heart chakra, is now a freaking sword. It's a weapon. That's literally what happens on an energetic level. So that is extremely harmful for a man, for a masculine, because the trauma that's now occurring is he's being completely desensitized. And a boy isn't in nature a non-sensitive being. The masculine is as sensitive as the feminine. But throughout this programming, men are being desensitized. Their nervous system is just super thick. So there is just this layer of disconnection that is harder for a man to grasp once he's in it. So it's really vital for us to know what trauma the masculine is working with. And so the main traumas is sexual entitlement. You might not look at this as a trauma, but it's literally a loop. Men, oftentimes, what they learn subconsciously through porn, through religion, just in the subconscious, there is a sense of sexual entitlement. And that's a trauma, because that literally does not allow for the feminine softness to come in and teach. That holds a man in addiction, in attachment, and in trauma, because there's the sense of sexual entitlement. There is the sense of, I should get what I long for. I should be pleased. The feminine is here to please me, right? And that's what's been shown in porn. The feminine is degraded, here to please the masculine. Very, very distorted. Very distorted. And that's actually a trauma that men are running, this false mastery, this false sexual entitlement. Another big trauma is, of course, the addiction to it. The sexual experience is meant to be an experience of true pleasure. Addiction has nothing to do with true pleasure. Addiction is as much pleasure as the meth addict that is craving the high of his first shot. That's no pleasure. There's no pleasure in that. That's misery. That's satanic. That's not purity. So that's a big, big trauma for the masculine. The other one, of course, that performance, like attempting to perform, wanting to perform without knowing what he's actually doing. And then there is the pressure, the force. I want to that is basically it. And now what we have is the masculine trauma and the feminine trauma perfectly enable each other. This is like a really perfectly sinister cycle. In German, we call this thing Teufelskreis. Like, it's literally a devil's cycle. or a devil's circle, because the man's trauma is enabling the woman's trauma and the other way around, or the masculine trauma is enabling the feminine trauma. Because now the trauma that the feminine experiences is a lot of times the trauma of being the subservient one, whether that is through religion, this whole thing of like, I should provide, I should make my man happy. Like you can see it even in certain like religious texts where the man has the right to demand sex, and if his woman isn't providing sex, then he can divorce her or take on another woman. Like it's literally a distorted theme playing out in religious texts. So yes, of course, right now when we speak, that's not something we're running, because like, yeah, that's ridiculous. But it's in our subconscious. There are aspects that are still running the program, and it might be subtle. So there is still the sense of, oh, I should provide for my man, and if I can't enjoy sex, well, I should still do it because my man is entitled, right? And this is where our traumas meet and where our traumas enable each other's traumas. Like that subservient trauma of the feminine will feed into the entitlement trauma of the masculine. And so now truth isn't found in any of these experiences, when this is what all of our souls long for. So this session is really meant as the liberation for the feminine, so we can liberate the masculine. The next one is, of course, that fear of loss and that survival mechanism, right? Like look back into arranged marriages back in the day. That was the means that the feminine survived. When feminine or the female couldn't work or wasn't allowed to work or wasn't allowed to participate in society in that manner, there was literally this sense of, if I do not please my man, what if he puts me on the street? I have to keep my man happy in order to survive. That's literally still running in a lot of us. If I do not make him happy, what if he looks for someone else? Again, the sexual entitlement, what we've witnessed in porn. If I don't please him, he will go to another woman. If I don't make him happy, he will seek it elsewhere. It's very deeply ingrained in us. And I want us to know that, yes, we all crave sacred sexuality. And it looks so glamorous on Instagram, or when you have these tantric teachers where they teach tantra, and it's this like very glamorous way of teaching that. It's where most of our pain is stored. It's not easy to work through sexual distortions. And however glamorous sacred sex is presented wherever you see it, there is a deep journey of cutting through illusions and distortions that can be deeply painful, that can almost feel like desperate. So I want you to remove that sense that anything is wrong with you or that it looks so easy in other people's lives. Because anyone who truly worked through sexual distortions or who had sexual distortions to begin with, it's a massive journey. And it's a journey that takes time. Whoever tells you that within a month you can like experience orgasmic bliss and have multi-orgasmic experiences, they might be missing vital aspects, or they might not have to walk this journey that you're walking. But the journey you're walking is actual liberation for people, while this is a mental construct that looks very neat and dandy. The actual journey, actual tantra, is devotion, and it's not just a journey that is a month-long program and here you go. So there's nothing wrong with you, because I know this can look very glamorous and sacred sexuality, and it can look so beautiful and so easy. Working through all of these satanic belief systems and traumas isn't easy. And so there's nothing freaking wrong with you. Next one is the validation, right? Again, if I'm not performing, I'm not loved. If I'm not performing, he's not loving me, or he'll go somewhere else. Deeply ingrained in the feminine, especially in those of us who did not grow up around healthy father figures, especially for those of us who have never experienced unconditional love from the masculine. That's a deep one we're running. A deep one we're running. So that, again, that performance that I have to perform, if I don't perform, he will no longer love me. If I don't do what I think he would enjoy, he will leave me, or I won't be loved. It's torture for your soul. It's torture for your soul, and it's playing out in our sexual interactions. The next one, of course, is the sense of insecurity and shame. For a lot of girls, for a lot of women, the first sexual encounter was a sense of, fuck, this is it? That's it? Damn, there must be something wrong with me. That's literally one of the first experiences when we first have a sexual encounter. Like, fuck, this is it? That I must be broken. There must be something wrong with me. And that perpetuates shame and guilt and just a cycle of something's wrong with me, because that should be pleasurable, but I'm not experiencing pleasure. Therefore, I must be effed up. There must be something wrong with me. And this guilt, we're bringing this into our love life. We're bringing this into our sexual experiences, like year after year after year. No more of that. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing broken. That wasn't pleasurable because that had nothing to do with what pleasure actually is. That was literally like we've enacted something we saw in porn. Sex is absolutely multidimensional. It's an energetic experience, and it's a full body experience. So that means your whole body has to be activated in order to experience pleasure. So what we saw was we enacted something physical when it's solely energetic. Sex is a very, and I would say almost solely energetic experience. But most of us engage with it from a very physical lens, which isn't pleasurable. It's mechanic pleasure. It's the pleasure of a quick release. So how do we break this cycle and actually experience joy? And this is for my women, because it starts with us. You can talk about it as much as you want. You can bring it to your man and speak about it. Unless you have cleared that within, the words won't land and the experience won't change. So let's first start off with honoring our body. And in that, you will have to become the initiatrix. You will have to become the temptress. You will have to become the one that creates the game to play in it. So depending on where you're at, depending on where your man is at, if he's highly addicted to release his seed, that might be a little harder, because now he's engaging with you as a means to release. And again, the trauma in us, it's like we can feel this pressure. Our root chakra can feel the built up tension in our man's body, and we will make it ours when it's not our job. It is not our job to release our man from pressure. That's inner alchemy that he should have learned by the age of 16 and mastered, but he didn't. So we cannot enable his addiction and his suffering by releasing his pressure. That's not how that works. Now, I get that this might be a very sensitive conversation, because depending on where your man is at, it might look like you try to take away a math addict's last shot, like literally. You have to be a little playful with that and also be a little sensitive with how you bring this up. Now, for my standards, I absolutely cannot picture myself in a relationship with someone or in an engagement with someone who does not retain his seed and masterfully work with that. Because if your counterpart doesn't do that, there's very little room for play and exploration. If a man doesn't know how to hold his seed, there is very little room for pleasure. So that's, for me, that's definitely a base foundation. And if you're single, make this a base foundation. Do not date someone who doesn't engage in that. Promise you, you cannot change a man. A man has to be very curious about that. You cannot force an addict to stop and go to rehab. Like we know that. You cannot. So same with the sexual addiction or the addiction to release the seed. If your man doesn't have that natural spiritual curiosity and wants to be his best version and wants to be like looking for longevity and looking for truth, if that's not where your man is at, it's going to be quite hard to try to present that to him. So I'm not saying it's hopeless, not at all, but I'm saying you have to start within. You have to start with your cultivation practices. You have to start to practice inner alchemy. You have to start to touch your body properly. And in that, become the initiatress, the woman that knows how to guide the energetics, right? Rather than being a victim, become the initiatress. That means if your partner touches you in a way that isn't pleasurable, don't just like allow it, but playfully guide him into something that feels more pleasurable. Playfully guide him. Learn how to say no. And a no is never a harsh no. It's simply just a not yet, daddy. It's never a rejection. So start with that. Play with your man. Show him where you experience the most pleasure, because whether he's addicted or not, he still wants to have you feel pleasure. He's in it for the pleasure and for your pleasure. So guide him, redirect him, teach him. Tell him to slow down. Tell him to go softer. Tell him to make it lighter. Or tell him to touch you here rather than there. Explore. And also explore with his body. Teach him by showing him what you would like. How would it look like in his body? Rather than going straight to his cock or whatever you do. Play with his body. Engage his full body. Massage his body. Massage the innocent spots like his earlobes or the area behind his neck, the area behind his knees. Like show him that innocent play and how pleasurable that is. Now, a man that is antsy for release and addicted to release will get almost like jittery, like almost like what's happening here. So it really depends, and it really will require your mastery. And whether the man you're with is the man you're going to stay with, or whether that's just the man you're learning how to express your oracle with, whatever relationship you're in, it's purposeful. So you can learn how to honor your body in every circumstance you're in. So the biggest one is the shift from shame, guilt, and all of that to oracle. And that's what our session was about. And this session is shifting things in the background. So solely by being here, by listening to this, there has been a recalibration. Because you will not look at your body the same way. And you will not look at your thoughts the same way. So the moment you energetically shift from shame, guilt, victim, prostitute, and you shift into oracle mode, there will be a different interaction when it comes to your sexuality. Literally invite play. Set up a play date. Set up a moment in which you take sex out of the equation. And that is something you can totally communicate with your man in whichever ways. I just want to explore you without an aim, without a goal, without an outcome. And catch yourself in robotic situations. Like you have to also become aware when you go into robotic movements, because this is not just the man. This is for both of us. When are you moving into program? Where are you moving into performance? Catch yourself and redirect yourself. That's so vital. Where are you robotic in your ways? Where are you grabbing his cock the way you learned it in porn? Or where do you do things because you think that's just the way it is? Get curious. And Also, one of the most vital ones, explore your body on your own and explore your body with truth. Listen to your body on your own. Make love to yourself from a very observed, witnessing place of what actually feels good here, or what am I just doing to get a quick release. And so now let's speak about the most vital aspect. Whew. When we're desiring a full body orgasm, a heart orgasm, a spiritual merging, that is a frequency that is beyond our current experience. So therefore, we have to learn certain things and we have to prepare certain things. So in that, the way you release your orgasm might be squandering your life force as well. There's so much talk about men holding their seed, but women can just orgasm over and over. To me, that's BS. And you have to figure that out on yourself. But if I have a clitoral orgasm, I can literally feel my life force being squandered. And I even felt that as a child. Like, I was addicted to masturbation, like so many of us are. And it's this like quick release, that clitoral orgasm. If I didn't touch myself for 3 weeks, it would feel heavenly. Why? Because I didn't squander my life force, and I actually had a built up spirit force that I would then squander again through that clitoral orgasm. But it would feel so good because I didn't do it for 3 weeks. And so that's literally what's happening. You are squandering life force if you don't know how to cultivate it. And so through that quick release, that clitoral release, that's the same thing that men do when they just jerk off. You are squandering your life force. You're giving your life force. And a lot of us are so used to squandering life force that we do not know the difference between relaxation and depletion. For a lot, that like mechanical orgasm will cause a relaxation when it's actually a depletion. But because we do not know how to cultivate life force and actually live with spirit energy, we're not aware when we're actually releasing our life force. That's really, really vital. So as you are desiring these higher states, we first have to clean up your environment. We have to clean up every dimension of your existence. Because if you don't have an ample and abundant amount of access spirit energy to activate and fuel your body, you won't experience an immense heart orgasm from the last resources of your life force. That's not going to happen. So that's an energetic build-up practice that you have to cultivate. So you first have to go into like inner alchemy practices and learn how to actually channel this energy, which is something, the basics of it, I teach in my one-on-one work and I teach in my coursework. But that's something you have to go into. The next thing is also to see where are you leaking life force. We'll get into that in another video because that's a whole topic for itself. But your orgasmic energy is basically the excessive spirit energy. But if you are used to interactions, which most of humanity is programmed to do so, that will deplete your life force, there is no excess energy for you to experience and be charged up on all multidimensional levels for an orgasmic experience. So whether that is in work, if you're being underpaid, you're giving your life force away. If you are stressed out, you're squandering your life force. You have to build up, which a lot of times takes around a year, to even have the capacity to have the excess spirit energy to even experience orgasms, like what an actual orgasm is. I'm not speaking about the mechanical clitoral or vaginal orgasm. I'm speaking about something that is fueling your organs, that is fueling your heart, that is fueling your spirit body. that is activating your spirit body. We're speaking about a whole, like, we're not even speaking about the same thing. So I use the same word orgasm. It's a totally different experience. One is you being trained to release life force. One is fueling your spirit body. And in that, when we learn how to actually masterfully live from spirit energy, there is no doubt in my mind that we can at least live 200 or 300 or 400 years. That's the reason why you will find Tibetan ancient monks that are 300 years old, because they've learned how to live from spirit energy rather than tapping into their life force resources. So until you have mastered that in your life, which is in every arena of your life, that is in work, career, every single day life. What are you eating? Are you addicted? Right? Addictions deplete your life force. Coffee depletes your life force. Like, chances are really low that you experience multi-orgasmic, multi-dimensional experiences if you're addicted to caffeine and other things, because they take your life force. So before we even go into sex, this is way bigger. This is us looking into every dimension of where am I giving my life force energy? Where am I tapping into my life force resources? Because again, if we're on the last straw of our life force and we're just constantly using life force as a resource, that multi-orgasmic, beyond orgasm, orgasm experience is not going to happen. So that takes inner alchemy and energy cultivation. And that takes at least a year. At least a year. And that's why it's also so vital to learn who you're allowing into your field, especially when you're working with healers, especially when you're working with someone who touches your body. Because if they do not know how to channel their spirit energy, and rather they tap into your life force, into their life force resources when they're touching you, it's an unclean experience. That's something I had to learn, and I'm still learning and mastering, especially because I work with the female body. In my quantum healing sessions, I move it more into an intimate massage where I actually work with the genitals, and I work with the groin area, and I work with the spine, the coccyx area, the tailbone, and I create a really safe experience for women, because this is where the trauma is. So we need more practitioners that really masterfully know how to work with that realm and are also really pure. If I am tapping into my own resources, this is not a clean exchange. So that's why this is very vital for me and for the work that I do. But whatever you're doing, it is vital for you to learn that and master that. So this goes way beyond the realm of sexual interaction. And learn that pleasure is a full body experience. It's a full body experience. So bring your whole body back into it. Phew. Ooh, that was such a big topic. Phew. And there's like a lot of movement. Again, I am available for quantum healing sessions. They are profound online, but if you are in the Sedona area or if you're coming to visit, we can absolutely engage in a personal experience. And again, I work very intimately with the female body. So if there is sexual energy you hold that is stored in your body, I work intimately with this, and I work intimately on releasing this. So of course, this is the quantum healing session is a part for us to get familiar and get comfortable so we can even work in these realms and in this depth, because that takes a lot of trust and that takes a lot of felt truth and purity. I am also still available. I have 2 more spots left for the big quantum shift container that's happening in September. I'm starting another one-on-one. Yeah, it's a one-on-one space, a one-on-one container where we really intimately work on these things. So these are offers. I also have my other offers in the here, right there, down there below, for our Sedona gathering around the 11/11 portal. really big. If you feel the call, to come to Sedona, if you feel the call for a life healing immersion in which we will work on many, not just limiting programming, but a lot of our programming is satanic programming. So it's really coming back into our truth, into our purity. So much available, so many beautiful resources. The video around the throat chakra spoke about truth more if you want to just grasp that dimension deeper and what that really is. I hold you in so much love, and I hold you in so much truth, and I hold you in so much purity. Thank you for sharing this space with me, and thank you for embarking in this deep collective healing with me. Because this video, the more of us are watching it, there is immense power in that, and immense collective healing happening right here, right now. So thank you so much for this experience. You're a trooper.